I like what you said about you can't give up, and I like what you said that it's just not in the right hands, because I do think that not giving up will put your product in the right hands, and you'll find an audience that you didn't expect to acquire.
I got some really bad news. I forgot to hit the record.
I was wondering because I looked down and I could not see the record button.
It was underneath the edge.
No.
Yeah, we've just been having a pleasant conversation.
It was a good conversation.
It was so good. We'll never capture that again. But to be fair,
Are those not recording?
those are. But guess what's not on those?
The audio.
Audio.
Audio's not on that. I was like, I could splice it in using just those cameras, and then I realized that no, I can't. Claps.
Welcome.
To Mind Your Own Small Business, I just made a huge mistake and lost 15 minutes of footage, but it's still better than a coffee break and cheaper than therapy. Oh, that hurts. It was a really good conversation too.
Yeah, and we missed.
Now we're gonna have to make you a checklist.
We missed
Have
the
I
end.
done
That's
this?
process.
And
We
it
need-
comes full
You
circle.
want to talk about process.
To be fair, we did go way.
Not just creative design process, but like
Yeah, we
internal
kinda-
processes.
we went off. There was a whole thing about fingerprints. And
Yeah,
Animaniacs.
yeah, we're
Maniacs.
Conjugal visits.
Conjugating verbs. Is what that
Conjugating
was.
verbs would came out to
Tomato, potato. Same thing.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway.
Anyways, I'm Brian.
Michael.
Pepperoni.
And Thomas. Last time before you hit record, the joke was. See, do we repeat the same jokes?
No, you can't.
Okay.
I don't think
It's lightning in a bottle. You can't just
Lightning in a
recreate it.
bottle.
It just
I
doesn't.
know.
Speaking of processes.
Anyways, so
Isn't that a Sting song?
maybe.
Lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, 10 seconds.
Well, no. If you're singing it, you're fine. Because you're gonna be so off tune. There's no way they're gonna find
Well, you
it.
quoted that Elton John song before we hit record.
Which one?
When I'm pissing in the wind. And that-
I don't know if I've heard that one.
It was a remake.
Oh,
It was on track other side. Track B.
That's
Oh,
how you get everyone angry at you.
yeah. I'm angry at myself, but I owned up to it. I made the mistake.
I would have just hit record and kept going, but that's me.
It
that's fair.
wouldn't have made any sense because we have no
It would
audio
have
up
just,
until that point.
come in at a certain point.
Okay, so last time Brian got yelled at because the now returning guest has not been introduced on what he does and the things that he is good at.
I want to know what was this? Where did the criticism come from?
My brother. So we had the one where we did the episode where we had.
Which one? The one?
No, you weren't here.
You were here. It was Brian McKellar
Oh, yeah.
and
Rob Burns.
Rob were on, and he's like, "Who? Why?" And it's like, "We just had lunch together. How come you don't know who they are?"
We just we didn't introduce them.
Introduce them.
We told him what their names were, and he's like, "Yeah, why
do they do?
Why are they on the podcast?"
What relevance do they have?
And so we never said that, and
good.
and I don't know if we ever went into details of like what you do, but if you want
Yeah.
to introduce yourself
So
Again.
again,
Michael Voorhees, and I do product development. I've been doing product development for about 15 years, and I've done a lot of really fun, high market value. I don't know what's a good way to put that. It's not like low end products on a big market. It's high end products on a smaller
On a
market.
specific market. I say
Custom
high end niche products
High
that
niche.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
focused.
You have created $1 billion product.
I have, which doesn't seem so niche.
Correct, if it's $1 billion.
Yeah.
depends how much each one costs.
$1 billion a piece.
I could
gotta sell us
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
If you sell $100 million products, then I know math's wrong there.
Don't do math on
Here we
camera.
go, yeah.
I don't do math in public.
Carry the one.
that is more. So it would be $100 million.
Number 3, my lord.
But yeah, so that's pretty amazing. And you were actually saying on the way over here, you were helping someone set up quality control processes this week, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that I realized right away when I got into working with a manufacturer that is not far from here. That process is huge, right? Because what they had was all these products they were making, and there was about 10 components, and the guys on the assembly line were going, this one doesn't fit with that one, though this one works, and then, okay, this doesn't work here, and it was like this whole puzzle thing, and I was like, ooh. So I actually I was going to college at the time, and I talked to one of the teachers, a professor, and I said, what do I do? How do I fix this? And he goes, do you need to work on a process, and you need tolerancing things? And so he helped me work through it, and really helped the company. They realized the value in what I could do, and he basically turned me loose on a whole bunch of new products, and now they've sold over $1 billion worth of stuff.
So did they just not have like quality control in place so that they were making things with different tolerances, or what was causing it like pieces not to
like
work?
drawings not having tolerancing, so then it's like, the machinist is going to hit it as close as he can, but is that close enough?
Oh, that's interesting.
It becomes a problem if you're making one pair of headphones, that's not too bad, but when you're making 1 million and you've got probably 50 components or 80 components in that set of headphones, when things don't fit together, it's not good.
No, it's not.
And then just from the logistical side of it, of putting it together, if, like you said, if pieces don't fit, then you go from paying an employee, let's just say for argument's sake and money, they're making $10 an hour putting these headphones together. For every hour that they spend incorrectly, it's costing you, not only is it costing you $10, but it's actually costing you more because of loss of time, product, than the wages of the employee. It
adds up. It cascades.
And you also need a smarter employee to know
Also
how
true.
to put it. It's kind of harsh to say that, but if you have someone who's doesn't have the presence of thought to figure out how to solve the puzzle, if the pieces don't always fit, then you get no headphones, even though someone could have made it work. That's because I keep on thinking of my business, which is small quantity manufacturing. We make projects to order and how it would apply. But the thing is that me and my wife, we make these products from scratch, so we know them inside and out.
So here's a potential problem you've got coming up. I'm just going to throw a hypothetical scenario out there. This year you built all these Easter things a certain way. Next year you say, we need to change something there, and now those two parts that you changed out might not interchange with what you did last year. And so somebody comes to you this next year and says, hey, I want to put a cross on it this year where I put a tree on it last year, and you're like, oh. So now you've got to be able to
make sure that it's backwards compatible.
Backwards compatible. So I deal with things like that all day.
Interesting.
Or you take the Microsoft approach and say, got to buy a new Xbox. Not
Microsoft.
backwards compatible.
Apple. They produce a new phone. You're like, oh, you have to get a new dongle so you can use your old headphones.
Oh, those dongles. I'll get you.
You're not wrong.
Look at this thing. I have 90 different things so that I can plug in 3 USB cords.
When he says 90, just for the audience,
He means
I
2.
means 2. So
Yeah. He's overemphasizing the number of dongles.
It's called hyperbole. I can't talk.
Yeah.
Anywho.
So anyway, process is huge, and that's process for building stuff, and then there's it's more important than I think a lot of startup smaller businesses think it is.
100%.
So you find
totally agree.
companies that are founded in process, like Amazon is super founded in process,
Almost to its detriment
almost
at times.
too much
Oh,
sometimes.
Yeah.
agreed.
Where
100%.
But-
people were afraid to take bathroom breaks because they expected you to follow a schedule to X amount.
Yeah.
And they got in trouble for that. And then you have me that I just I want to make this, and so I make it. And then I have a sister who runs my business when I'm out of town for a week, and is
She doesn't know how to do anything.
she had no idea. And it's oh yeah, you got to find this random file on my computer. Don't worry, nothing's labeled, so just search it, and then it's. That is one thing that me and my wife need to do really bad, is that we're constantly workshopping, creating new models, and we do not have a good filing system yet. And so I needed to cut a piece out last night because I forgot to cut it out here. And I started going through the files, and I could not for the life of me find it on the computer it was designed on. So I had to go onto our Google Drive, download it again, and then cut it because we don't have a good filing system right now. So that is one process that we need to put in place and I keep on telling her, you need to have an old versions file and move everything that's not current.
Yeah. There's nothing more annoying to me than to get into somebody's file and they go, product X, new, product X, new, product X, the newest, or they'll put, I'm not kidding you. It happens all the time.
New.
And then
new.
Yeah.
New.
Exactly.
And then it's like
New.
new X5.
Or the
new
funniest one
X6.
is too is like
New to the 6th
the yes, they're like, this is the final version of this, and you're like, no, this is not the final version of it, and that is why I'm here right now.
Oh my goodness.
So something that Anthony and I have discussed when we get employees that get kind of frustrated at is oftentimes it's not the people, it's the process.
Yeah.
It's the process.
It's not that the people are incompetent. I mean, sometimes people are incompetent, right? We all know incompetent people, but many
Sleeping on bathroom floor.
You wouldn't have anybody do that.
but
That's weird.
That's dirty.
But I feel like that's a lot because being an entrepreneur, I'm very disorganized in a number of for anyone looking on the outside in. But in my mind, it actually
makes sense.
It all makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. I'm like, of course, that's where it is. Like, why wouldn't it be?
Why
over
wouldn't
there?
it be there?
And even if it's completely inefficient to someone outside looking in, I look at it. I'm like, well, no, we want to keep those sandals there because of and the ladder stays there because of this and because of that. And so even if I'm walking an extra 1,700 steps a day going in between different locations in the warehouse, I've always cut the ends off the ham to make that analogy, right? For those of you who don't know this analogy, it's someone is cooking a ham and they cut the ends off and the husband or whoever
Pause.
says,
I'll tell it. Sorry. Grandma, wife, or grandma, daughter, and then granddaughter in the kitchen cooking a ham. Daughter is cutting the ends off, says to mom, why are we cutting the ends off? I don't know. Mom, why are we cutting the ends off the ham? Mom says, that's because when I had the pan in the early days, that's how it fit in the pan, was having to cut the ends off. And the mom or the daughter and the granddaughter had to
Continue cutting
cutting the ends off the ham because they thought that's the way it was all.
I was like, that's how
They
you cook a ham.
literally talked about that in Tesla. So they were making a Tesla car, and there was this manufacturing process like, hey, why are we doing this? It's like, that's because quality control says we need it. And then they go to quality control, and it's like, that's because someone else says they need it. And then it turns out that they both thought the other person needed it and just left in the design, which added a whole like extra process in like making the base floor plate. And like, oh no, we don't need that. And so by sitting down the heads and talking to them, they were able to remove this extra process in manufacturing that ended up saving them time and money. And it's something where as you get bigger, it comes harder because you have these individual ecosystems that are making an idea, sending it off to someone else, and then they're taking that idea without any information on why that idea is the way it is, and then running with it. And oh man, that's
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's fine because it's organically moving and flowing
Have
the right
you seen
direction.
any of the videos of a dad will ask their kids to write down all the steps to make a peanut butter and jelly
Oh,
sandwich
yep.
and then make the sandwich? Just the way, and it's like the kid's like, no, you just make the sandwich.
Yeah.
But that's how you feel, right? Like you feel that every day, and you're like, you just put the shoes in the bag and you take this little tag and you put it in there, right? But which way do they cook together, and which way does it like?
Check the quantities, right? Making sure that if they order 2, don't accidentally put 1 in.
I was laughing one day because I saw a note downstairs by the laser that you had written on the thing. It's about how to mark a box with quantities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
because that was a process. It was
It needs
because
to be
otherwise
up
we
here on the
ended up-
corner.
Yeah, they can be anywhere on the box. That is the number one thing when I work at warehouses is how to label boxes is ingrained into you immediately because they want to know exactly what's in the box and how many are in the box right
And
off the
sometimes a
bat.
lot more than that. But yes.
and even where to scan. Like if you have barcodes and you just stick them wherever on the box, and you come up and here's a box and the barcode is on the other side of it, so you have to like turn. No, you want to be able to just zap. Unless you're running an RFID, you want to zap every single one of those barcodes
At the same
right
time.
then and there, and so you can just go up a stack and down a stack, and they all have to be the same amounts. You know, it's like, well, I was able to fit one more in this one. No,
That's
a
not
case is
helpful.
23 units, right? Don't say, well, I could squeeze it
Don't
in.
mess with the process.
Yeah, the process.
Trust the process.
But then it's funny because then you say, well, 23, like that's a weird number. It's like, yeah, because that's how many units generally fit in a 24 by 16 by 12. And you say, why
are we
do you have a box size that's 24, 16 by 12? Well, because when we first started, that fit 6 shoe boxes exactly. And that is the largest size that you can get without getting an oversized charge from UPS.
That's fascinating.
But it won't hold 24.
No, it holds 20.
23.
No, it holds 24 if you go with smaller
if you go
size.
upside down,
Yeah, but your
There you
bigger
go.
sizes don't fit it.
And so you have to fit 23.
and now you're carrying a different box.
Okay,
and- yeah.
question for you. So this has to do with processes. How often do you look at your processes and scrutinize them?
We just fire the people and instead of making new processes. We just get rid of
Just
them.
hire somebody else.
person who
That
made the
person
process,
obviously
you
can't
fire,
do
you're like,
No, we make the process and new people come on and they're like, this is odd. You're like, okay, cool. See ya. Bring on somebody else.
Like,
'Cause-
follow our process or you're fired.
Pretty
this,
much.
But this literally happened yesterday when someone we have working in our warehouse right now, she was like, here, I did this according to what Anthony's like, thank you so much for doing it my way, because that's just, he spent the time on the process, he studied it. You say, how often do we review it? Honestly, it's when someone else
Yeah.
comes in.
When there's
when a
there's
new person.
Yeah, and when there's a
Outside
problem,
eyes.
right? And you're like,
I argue it's not even when there's a problem.
I don't
If
think
there's
it's
a
where the
problem,
problem-
you just roll over the problem with the process.
And,
There you
and
go.
a lot
Well-
of the times you said it that you'll fire the person who doesn't follow your process because I
I said fired. They quit, but
Okay.
it made me feel more authoritative.
No, yeah.
They weren't happy.
But I've been in ones like that where it's like, hey, why are you doing it this way? It's like because this is the fastest
way.
way. And it's like this is the way.
I think a lot of people look at saying, okay, we've got to develop a process to do this, and they go, well, I know how to do that, and it just seems like anybody else ought to be able to just do it the way I'm doing it, easy
Yeah.
enough, right? And they see the creation of the process taking too long and eating up too much of their very important time, and it's not worth it on the front end to spend that money to make that happen, and so they end up with big problems on the other end of it, because if a case was 23 and they send out, they're like, but I could get 26 to fit in there. Now your inventory count is off somewhere else.
Yep.
And that can cause you a lot of problems.
Sure does.
even if they look at it and they say, well, if I can fit 26, it's going to save you one box out of every 12. And that saves you, let's say you've got 100 boxes. Well, those boxes are $2 a piece. Look, I just saved you an extra $12, but because
It messes other things up. Oh man, that's crazy. That brings up. Remember who was I talking to the other day where I said when things are worse, like your life can get better.
Yeah, I mean, that was-
So there's a philosophy, I forget what it's called, or a theory that we put up with a certain level of crap because we don't want to deal with change.
Yeah.
And when we hit that crap threshold, we're ready to make that change. And arguably our life is better after. And so if we were to move that threshold down, we would be happier people because we deal with problems sooner.
Okay, comment on that. So I work for a company,
Your
and
brain is like moving.
it's
in
all
weird
over the
directions.
place. 'Cause
we're still operating like we make $1 million a year, but we make 8. And
wow.
it's not good in so many ways. And we need so many processes for so many things. I could literally work full time for the next 6 months developing process of things that we already do the company sees that as a huge waste of time, and in some of it might be. And the biggest thing that I keep trying to reiterate with everybody I talk about processes with, it just needs to be simple. It needs to be super simple. You don't need to make a book that just this big, full of everything, because nobody's going to use it.
Yeah.
It needs to be simple. It needs to be a sticky note on the wall where the person's putting the things into boxes, just like I saw downstairs.
Ew.
Oh my word. Okay.
And it
so
also has to be something that like someone can pick up with minimal training.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because like that's the big thing. As soon as a process has like more than 10, 12, 15 steps.
Like if I'm writing a process for the receptionist downstairs, I don't need to tell her how to turn the computer on. Yeah, I just need to let her know how to.
And if they don't know how to turn on a computer,
Yeah.
then you need to hire a new receptionist.
So, oh gosh, yeah, there's a lot. Okay, so first of all, and I know we're not going to get into this here in this one because I think this is there's a few steps further than we want to go. But studying things like Six Sigma, Toyota Way,
Yes.
Getting things like Kanban car, all,
I studied Six Sigma.
this whole idea. So when I did my master's, the reason I went back and did my master's program, which was really weird because people are like, why are you going to go back? You're an entrepreneur. Why do you need to do that? And I said, because I need to make Anthony's life miserable, which is what happened. But I went back because
I earned it. Oh, I earned that.
I
Don't you
saw-
worry.
You got
I
your master's
saw-
right alongside him, except
No.
you didn't get the paper.
I'm no master student.
no master's.
You saw what?
but
He already went to school for like 9 years.
Right.
He's a doctor in
Honorary.
honorariness. From nowhere. Botswana's top online university. So that was one of the reasons I went back, is because I said, as my company grows, I don't want to be in that situation. Where you have two farm boys that created a really awesome product and they're really good at managing a $5 million setup, but they're not really good at managing a $50 million setup. And there are several companies in town that I watch struggle through those kinds of elements. But a couple of things that I wanted to bring forward, I'm just going to dump these ideas on the table because they're all just rattling around. Number one, this reminds me a lot of when you go through like a spring cleaning. Like you just deal with, you go with clutter blindness is what they call it, right? So like in my bedroom, I have, let me take you to my bedroom. In my bedroom, we have, I have a desk, and the desk was there because I'm going to study on this desk. This desk is here because I am going to wake up in the morning, I'm going to journal write, I'm going to do these great things. So what does the desk become? It becomes a flat surface.
Flat surface.
That you can
That
put
collects
clothes
stuff.
on.
Yes, clothes, stuff, a keyboard, ukuleles, whatever, right? It's got stuff. And then after a while, you just kind of accept the fact that that's where it goes
And
until
a couple
it
of times you
reaches-
go and clean it off.
Yeah, move it enough so that you can put new stuff on it. But you just get to this point where you have this clutter blindness. And I feel like that, we talk about from a $1 million to an $8 million company, this idea that those processes are just the same. And just kind of, it's fine. You walk around, the hamper of laundry that's in the wrong spot so many times that eventually that just becomes your new process.
Yeah,
and
that's
it
where the
happens
hamper goes.
haphazardly. But when you finally get to that breaking point and you're like, fine, we're going to move, moving, people say that 3 moves are the same as a fire, right?
My grandfather said that 3 moves is as good as a fire.
So, because you're constantly just shedding stuff that you've accumulated over the years. We've been in the same home for, 12 years now. And yeah, you better believe that we've got an accumulation of stuff that is like, maybe we'll use that, whatever. Anyway, that's not where I'm going. So the last thing I wanted to throw on here is you were mentioning that your boss feels like that's a waste of time to go there and improve processes. And that is a very stereotypical thing. I've talked about this. I learned this from another mentor of mine about finders, minders, and grinders. That basically finders are like 30,000 foot view, C-level people, right? Minders are like managers, and grinders are those that are just getting things done. The problem is oftentimes those who should be at a 30,000 foot view get put in as grinders because they know what they're doing. It's easy to move them there. And if you're the owner, you like being in the trenches. You want to work in the trenches. You don't want to be looking at financial statements all day. And so what happens is when you're not looking at a 30,000 foot view, of course you want to keep running it like it was a $1 million company because you have no person on the watchtower. You have no lighthouse to light the way. It's just you on the beach picking up seashells with everyone else, and no one has any idea whether or not there's a wave coming, a mile away, and to try and move everyone off the beach. Anyway, it's just that happens a lot, especially when you're a startup and you're trying to figure everything out. So, I mean, do you see that where because the owner is still the main guy that's doing what he's doing, right? So
he's in the trenches every day, and he comes in way too early because he feels he's got way too much to do, and he spends most of his day doing remedial things that he doesn't need to do. And I feel like between myself and another coworker, that between the two of us, we've got more vision for that company than he does, because he's so set in just the way he's doing it.
Now, is it an $8 million company because he's been in the trenches? Like, is it? I mean, you can see this from this outside perspective,
Maybe.
but you don't know
Maybe.
him. And if he were to take a step back, things would start to implode.
I think that's a good reason why we need better processes, right? Because he's going to retire, right? Or hopefully, or maybe. I mean, no, hopefully for him.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? Hopefully for him that he feels like someday he can retire, and or that that he could take a step back, or that he could pursue other interests, or spend more time hunting, or whatever he wants to do.
Or just retire, right? You reach the end of your career.
And that he can have it set up in a way that it continues to provide an income for him until he dies.
I found that with every entrepreneur that I've joined and come on as a helper, I've found that it is not uncommon for the owners or starters of those companies to be overwhelmed with wearing too many hats. And I've decided myself that it was like, how many of those hats could I accumulate or could I wear for them so that they could move and do things that they actually enjoy doing?
Right. That's totally where I'm at.
As I've done that, the people that I've been with have flourished. It's a great example of what we were able to do. And I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but I did sell out of product in 3 months. But as soon as I was able to alleviate the things that were headaches for Thomas, the more that Thomas was able to work on things that he enjoyed doing. And because he enjoyed doing them, then he flourished in doing that. And then the company grew because he's the one that started it, and he's the one that had the passion for it. And as soon as that passion was able to be channeled in the right areas, then the company grows.
To that point, our owner has developed, designed a lot of the initial products that have got him this far, right? And I think really, if he would take a bigger step back and look at the whole picture and not be worried about making one small thing for this person, one small thing for that person, or whoever answers, it feels like whoever he answers the phone call is who's important, and it's like that kind of stuff needs to be passed on to somebody else, and you can like lift yourself up here and we can create a vision that we can all see, and we know where the ship's going.
So with that actually, this reminds me of a very interesting, there was a business that I used to follow, was Rooster Teeth, if you guys know them. You guys probably know. They're a media entertainment company.
Sorry, just to clarify, you said Rooster Teeth?
Yeah, they wanted to name their company Cockbite, but they realized they couldn't get advertisers, so they changed it to Rooster Teeth. That should give you an idea of what the company was like. The main guy who started the company just made this. It was called Machinima. They used a video game of Halo to make a show, and it took off and started making a lot of money. And the creator of the series realized that he didn't want to be that bird's eye person who develops processes. So he specifically brought someone in and hired them to take that over so that he could.
That's why a lot of owners eventually have to hire a CEO.
Yeah. And so that's what he did. So it sounds like in your case, it's not necessarily that the owner needs to like stop doing what he does and do that. He just needs to find someone who will step back and do that for him.
Oh,
And there's been multiple
And it
of
sounds like
us,
that's what you guys
me
do,
and
too.
another guy that's working there right now are like, please let me help you help yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I really want
Help
to do this.
me
He goes,
help
well,
you.
you know, like, yeah, things like, he'll say things like, well, nobody wants to sit around and, you know, develop a process to do something and work on that all day long. And I'm kind of like, yeah, actually my mind flourishes there. Like,
I do.
there's a great quote in. This is going to sound weird at the beginning of this statement, but there's a great quote in Batman Begins when son of a gun. When
Is that where the quote starts?
yeah,
son of a gun.
son of a gun. No,
Metal Batman.
Bruce Wayne, little Bruce Wayne, kid Bruce Wayne, is on the train with his parents in Gotham City, and they're traveling to the theater where eventually Bruce Wayne's parents get murdered.
Spoilers.
Yeah, I'm sorry, spoiler alert. The movie's like 15 years old,
By
but
Catwoman.
and
The Joker.
Green Lantern. No, so. They pass Wayne Tower as they're going in the plane the train. Goodness.
Plane's
And
trains and
Bruce
all.
Wayne asks his dad, "Is that where you work?" And Thomas Wayne, I think is his name,
Yes.
says, "No, I work at the hospital. I leave the running of the company to better men." And Bruce Wayne looks at his dad and with a puzzled look and says, "Better men?" And Thomas Wayne says, "Well, more interested men." And I've always liked that quote because it was like he leaves the running of the company to people that enjoy the running of the company,
Right.
even though he is the namesake of the company and he is able to do what he enjoys of the company, but he leaves the CEO and all the C-level stuff to people that enjoy doing that and are probably, frankly, better than he is at doing those things. But he is the founder of the company.
That's exactly the way the company I worked for in Boise was that way. The owner of the company is a huge, mostly distribution, but we did a lot of product development of our own in-house brands. And the owner, you would find him frequently, like working in the warehouse. Like he was always like working with the warehouse employees and trying to work through things and how he was going to have it organized and all these things. He loved that part of the business. He loved being there, boots on the ground, doing the grinder style work. He was still had big vision for the company, but he left up the running and the operations to other people
More interested
that were
men.
people that were interested in doing that
Yeah.
because he was not interested in doing that part of it.
Okay, so two things to kind of like focus us again, because we haven't gone into actually establishing any processes, just the importance of it. Because I would like to touch on that because I think that's important. And then the second one is, how do you know when to? Because we talked about like the decluttering and all that stuff. How do you change up your processes before it's a problem?
Oh,
Do you need to wait for it to be a problem?
I
Or
am a bad example
can you-
of this.
I think that's how most of the world operates, right? Though it's like I've got a problem.
If
need
it,
a
if it
process.
ain't,
The water's
If
coming
it
in the
ain't
door, and I
broke,
gotta.
don't fix it.
Yeah.
And so then,
But then pretty soon you just
wait
keep
till it's
putting
broke, though.
another level on the threshold of the door,
Yeah.
and the water's coming in.
Well, but the thing is that
eventually,
if you have
right?
an airplane, you don't want to wait till it's broken to fix it, especially if it breaks during flight.
I think they do. I don't know.
I hope not.
That's fair. I mean, I guess if it comes down and they look around and everything's
looks
it
okay.
looks okay. I mean, I guess if there's a loose bolt, maybe they touch up the bolts. I
Well,
guess
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Well,
I'm not an
they
aeronautic
do-
scientist.
Hang on. Maybe we've just discovered something, this whole like chicken egg thing. Like, are processes created before there's problems? Or are processes created
It's
because
depends
of
on
the
problems?
problem.
Whether
problems.
are you a reactionary to your problems, or are you what would be the word?
I would say you are very forethought.
Proactive.
And, yeah, you're very proactive.
Proactive.
I'm going to argue and say that
Most
most of the world is not that way.
No.
They
I'm
wait
gonna-
till an airplane falls out of the sky and it's like, how do we make sure that this
shit.
never happens?
Look at the Boeing 737 Max.
I rode on
Okay.
one.
Oh,
I rode on one from Long Beach, California to San Jose, and I got on and I was like the little pamphlets in the thing, and I was like, Max, wait, that's the these things have fallen all over the place in the world.
We're gonna die.
Now, I mean, you look
No,
at
they
it.
it was basically a software update that they had to do.
Man.
So, but that was the problem. So, okay, I have so many emotions in this one today. This discussion.
It's
Because
touched a nerve.
it comes back to what I asked about the individual that you work for, and that is oftentimes. So if you come in, wow, we're all getting.
Is it my
calls
turn
today.
next?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's a busy day apparently.
Well, it's Friday. It shouldn't be busy. So the challenge that I have is this: it's that whole "if it ain't broke, don't fix it." But when you have somebody that's up high, they should be able, and I say up high, meaning that you have somebody that's in that watchtower that can look for the storms.
Senior level management.
Yeah, that isn't douchey senior level management, right? Like you don't want to have a senior level management that's just there for the title. You want them there that have that, as Anthony said, the interest. But first of all, changing processes when things are good is very hard to do.
It's difficult, man.
Because to quote a buddy of mine that said it once, is he said, here's the problem. If you're operating at an 80% efficiency, even at a 70% efficiency, making changes has a greater chance of you dropping below that 70% because you're already above a 50% efficiency. If you're below a 50% efficiency, then yeah, you can make changes and odds are you're going to get better. But when you're at a 70% efficiency, it is a greater chance that you make a change and you go to a 65% than it is for you to eke another 2% going forward. Yeah. So hang on. I think that's where, like, I am running into this. I kid you not. We're going through this right now. The call I had right before this was with our acting controller that's coming in looking at all of the things and asking, why do we cut the ends off the ham? Okay. And a lot of it is just, this process worked. Well,
That's the way Grandpappy did it.
Well, it's the way that we did it in 2019 and 2020 and 2018 and 2007. Like, this is what's fed all of us for the last 8 years. Well, guess what? This is not the same world that it was 5 years ago, right? Our interest rates are two and a half times what they were when money was practically free. And so we can't make those same the same errors. And so now I'm freaking out, and now we're trying to revamp processes and change things. But it didn't take it until there was an atmospheric shift in the market for me to do it, because I didn't want to rock the boat when things were going well.
Essentially, it broke.
So I'm a student of math. I love a lot of things math, and I saw this, and I'll let you look at it, and then I'll send it to Brian.
So I can overlay it.
Yeah, you could put it in the thing. There is power in being even a small amount better. 1%. 1% better. And I'll send it to you so you can put it on the thing.
I have heard this too. I've very much heard this, but in practical use, I personally have a hard time with, this is the way I've built the ship. This is the way I've sailed. Yeah.
I think this is a human condition problem, because like, change is inevitable, but 99% of the world hates change. And they'll fight it. So my dad installed computer systems for hospitals, computer operating systems. And the one thing that was miserable for him is every single one of the staff was like, this is dumb, this is stupid, the old system worked just fine, blah, 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 blah. But the new system had full integration. So scans done in radiology would go into the system, which then could be pulled up in the patient's room when the hospital. They could see all the past ones. So like, it was a massive upgrade, and it would help the hospital essentially, but they were running at that 70% efficiency.
But they see the cost of putting in a new system like that at, say, $1 million, just theoretically $1 million, right? But they see that is.
I'm talking more of
your thing.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm talking more of like the general rank and file. So like the nurses, the doctors, because they
were against doing something new because it's a different process.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And they're going to hit, let's say they go from 70 to 75% efficiency, or 70 to But for that brief second, you're going to go from 70 to 60 because they have to learn how to do the system.
Sometimes you got to take
down.
a half a step backwards before you can step forward.
Yeah, which when you have people's jobs on the line, when you have payrolls on the line, when you have bills on the line, taking that step, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. You have to take a step backward. And I know that in corporate America, you know, you have the tech layoffs that just happen, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, we have to cut, you know, liabilities, and those liabilities have names and families and children and mortgages, but it's okay, and they just chop it and it's gone, right? And as a small business owner, that's not how even when I had employees that were not working at a top efficiency, or, you know, the one that fell asleep on our bathroom floor, that was hard for me to finally sever that, because I saw the potential of that individual. But I mean, right now we're running lean because we're looking at, okay, what are our processes?
You're trying to position yourself too.
And anyway, no, it's a great principle. It's incredibly difficult because, yeah, I mean, think about somebody. Last thing, think about somebody who has a salary, a nice cush job, and then they have to make that decision that they want to be an entrepreneur. That's a massive change. It's huge. You have to take that step back. But when you take that step back, you could, you know, that bird in the bush could be much bigger versus the bird that's in your hand. And
one in the hand's worth two in the bush.
yeah,
It could be four in the bush, but oh man, that's a different thing.
so you were kind of forced into when you did it.
I had the carpet pulled out from under me, and I fell, and I was like, okay, I could just do more of the same and be miserable, or I could finally, because in the
But that first 3 months was rough.
my first year was rough. So we just did taxes. We lost 20,000 the first year. So that's in entrepreneur, that's not that much, but it's still
for a start. I mean, I remember when I made my first 350. I talked about last podcast that I made a $350 mistake, and we grossed $4,000 the first year we did in sales. That was like a massive hit.
Mistake. Yeah,
for
yeah,
me,
yeah.
Right, to basically lose 8% of my gross because I made this mistake. So anyway, no,
But like you mentioned a long time ago to me, it's better to have made that mistake when it was $350 than when it was $20,000.
And that's one of the things we talked about in the last podcast. If you haven't listened yet, you should. It's amazing. It's all about what was it about?
But the IP one or the one
The IP one. Yes.
that'll come out after this one.
The IP one's going to come out after this?
Yeah, because this is going to be part 2 of the one that releases
Oh,
next
right. Okay, so it's coming out. Surprise.
So order's all off. So, okay, here's my question, though, going back to this. Do you need to bring in a fresh set of eyes in order to help you know if your processes are wrong? Is that how you restructure? So you don't think so? You don't think it's self-reflection?
I think that people should, but I think that people do the wrong thing. So the company, again, that I'm working for right now, 10 years ago, hired a consultant to tell them all these things, and they went, this is great, this is important, all this stuff, and nothing happened.
So you need to hire someone, but you also have to have the willingness to implement what the person says.
You need to be willing to change.
Oh man, that's
Oh,
You need to be willing to realize, like, hey, I've created chaos, and I need to make it order.
And man, this makes me want to go back to the river thing. Is a river chaos or not?
That's a great segue. Let's do it. Is
so-
a river chaos or is it controlled?
When you think of this, all I can think of is that Pocahontas song. I look around the river bend.
Jeez.
wow, I haven't seen that movie forever.
Well, I have a DVD player in my truck, and so that was one of the DVDs.
I'm just kidding.
I have a technology that hasn't been used in 10 years in my truck. I'm afraid. No.
And then you drop in your cassette and have a good time.
Yeah, luckily I don't have one of those. But no, that was one of the movies that my wife picked. Was that one? And I think a river. I think a river is a perfect example because a river is willing to change its course to the easiest thing, but at the same time, that change is slow and gradual. So I think a business needs to be the same way. That it needs to be a process that a person can come back and understand and go with the flow. But as an easier process comes into being, that it has to be willing to make that change.
Okay, so we're at like 200% of snowpack right now.
Oh, that's going to be
Yeah.
horrible in spring.
So
There's going to be flooding.
talk about chaos. It's coming. So
That's my
like,
Easter.
look at this right here and where we're at and where we're talking about it and where each of us individually are in our own ventures, right? And it's like, we know there's a problem up here in the mountains, and eventually it's going to get to our front door, right?
But when do you actually?
But when do you start to sandbag?
When do you shore up
out
the
here?
banks? When do you sandbag it so that it doesn't overflow? Because I know that our local government is just going to wait until roads start flooding and then just shut them down and wait for the water to recede. Because that is a way to do it. Increase your manufacturing times. That's kind of what we're doing right now.
All right, hang on.
Uh-huh.
This Google definition of chaos: behavior so unpredictable as to appear random, owing to great sensitivity to small changes in conditions.
So,
Based off of that definition, I ain't seen no river as chaotic.
where's the river going to be once all the snow melts in the mountain?
Okay, so you're saying it's chaotic, but it's chaotic only when something is affecting it to be chaotic.
What?
No, I get that.
You're saying that the river is going to be chaotic once the snow melts and causes it to become chaotic.
Or if a storm comes through and dumps a bunch of rain up
Right,
in the
and
mountains.
you're saying an outside source. So my question then is
it-
right now the Teton River, right, right next to where my campground is, it floats
Montana.
around in Montana. that river, is it right now chaotic?
Yeah. No.
Not necessarily.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Okay, hang on,
But
because I'm
it's
seeing
operating within a boundary, right?
yeah. So I'm seeing two pieces of this.
Uh-huh.
I think the immediate, if you're looking at it from an immediate, Anthony is correct, but nope. Nope. That big butt on that is if you look at the larger 30,000 foot view
Oh.
at a river, it is chaotic.
It's not.
And
it-
if you
it is
also take
random.
over like a long period of time too.
Right, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like
That's your 30,000 foot.
yeah, your 30,000
Yeah,
foot
yeah,
view
yeah.
is time
and perspective.
and perspective. So you're looking at it, and because like you look at where the Snake River goes here in Montana, and and how
Like, man, these people failed geography bad.
bad they have no idea where they live.
Go back and listen to episode 1.
Try and you look at where it goes, and it doesn't have a
The
rhyme or
river's
reason.
been right where we're standing right now at one point.
At one point
This
it was
whole valley, the river has been everywhere in this whole
You
valley.
need to do something about your banks quick because when the snow banks
which
melt,
one SVB. We have to do something about all those banks.
Hashtag relevant.
Swiss, Credit
But what, would he,
Suisse.
what could he do? What could he do to those banks?
he needs to get something in order to.
What? Pour concrete? Like no offense. Like I don't.
No, go
You
ahead.
would have to lay down
Offend me.
Riverstone.
Riverstone. Where does one require Riverstone?
In a river?
Yes, but like what? But I don't know.
You can get truckloads of it. He needs to.
Okay, no, you're not wrong. But here's what here's a prime example. Okay, here's a prime example. Because right now I'm in the process of trying to learn. If the campground that I have has a certain level of profitability.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. It's my nature preserve. I'm trying to keep it as natural as I can. To do something like that, we're talking about a $20,000 to $30,000 investment, more than likely. Okay, between permitting and dumping stuff in and all of the stuff that needs to happen, it's a fairly substantial setup. So I could sit there and say, well, I need to take care of this process now because there might be a problem later. I could let that river eat into it for the next 5 or 6 years and still make the exact same amount of money on that property.
With no input.
With no input.
But
okay?
also at the same time, what if the river comes through the spring and knocks out your whole peninsula?
It's true. Or what if it comes through and even if we dump all that rock in and
And
it
it still goes.
And it wears away something in a different place or cause a different kind of erosion.
and that's exactly what we've been running into when I talk to the Bureau of Land Management is they say, look, the problem is if you can dump a bunch of rocks here, let's say you get all permission and everything else, right? or even, I dig out a trench about 2 feet in and just fill it full of rocks so that when it does eat away to that
it
point,
hits that barrier.
It hits that barrier. So there's lots of things you can do, but what it'll do is now you've changed the river so that it's chaotic. It now hits that wall and throws it harder against the other bank. So now the other bank starts eroding. Or let's say it comes in, hits harder
that's not
here,
your bank, so who
swing
cares about
around to the other side of mine, and now it's eroding at a different location.
Oh man, it's not you. This is literally going into the process problem. Do you fix one process and create a new problem for yourself?
That's exactly where he's going with it.
Because right now it's operating at enough of an efficiency that I am able to continue. Because even if I lose another, let's say I lose another, over the next 5 years, I lose another 5 feet. I use a foot per year. Okay, I could lose another 5 feet on that bank. In theory, even though I'm losing on that bank, there are possibilities of it actually gaining land on the other side. This was another thing that that my the BLM was talking about, is that you can actually gain land on the other side, because as it hits that and then starts to slow,
It will lead the sediment on the other side.
Exactly.
So where you have that little, oh man, that's so weird.
So in 10 years, it could be better.
in 10 years my beach could be larger,
And
which is where people want to be.
You could also own an island.
And it could be that it cuts right through, and
And then
put
you build a little
in.
bridge, and then you have what is it? What's the campground called again?
C3, Corner 3.
Corner 3.
Oh no, Teton Corners.
Teton Corners.
Oh, yeah.
So Teton Corners becomes Teton Island.
Teton Island, which then we put a reality show out there and see who survives.
Oh yeah, and see who's the rest longest.
So, but what I'm getting
Drop
at there
food
though
off
is
a
just
helicopter.
with people's farmhouses across the way, like, hello, like, I'm gonna die. Oh. But but that's so, do I dump $30,000 into something that might end up being, not even worth trying to fight what is naturally there? Or if you try and do stuff preemptively, and then turns out when the problem happens, it's a completely different solution. So you dump $30,000 into preemptive solution fixing when crap really does hit the fan.
It's a completely different problem.
It's like, oh, actually, I'm glad you dumped that $30,000 into patching all the potholes on Main Street here in Montana, and instead it wasn't that. It was that you spent $10,000 patching potholes. You should have just left the potholes, and then in 5 weeks later, just strip the whole road and redo it.
Do you remember when they did all that new construction? They didn't put in the proper drainage, and then the flood went right through the middle of campus.
Oh yeah.
That was crazy. Or another one where they did all of this stuff, but they didn't set up proper drainage, and so nature found a new way to drain. But and so we're hitting time.
I know. I want to hear, as I just dumped all of that. I want to hear Mike, because we have, like you said, we haven't gotten into, and so we're not going to get into how to set up process. So I think that's a third. Let's go into a third part, setting up processes.
I'm gonna have to create a whole playlist about processes.
Yes, of course you are.
And then we're never actually going to talk about them.
How about you make a process about setting up that playlist, and then we'll have a process.
You got to keep leading people on, Brian.
After,
and that's okay.
Yeah, lead people on. That's how Anthony's
be a
dating life
tease.
went. So,
Hey!
I want to hear, after everything I just dumped there about Teton Corners, about rivers, about all that, Michael, what are your thoughts on that? Because you're the process person. Should I be digging into should I be doing all these preemptive items
How long have you owned
now?
the property? 2 years now?
It'll be 2 years in September, so not that
I
long.
was saying, so, yeah, not terribly long. And
Click the link. Didn't mean to. My bad.
the thing is, really, you haven't been there long enough to really know how fast it's changing, how fast it's moving.
How much has eroded?
And then
in your
you're
rough
going to see
estimate?
this spring what a 100-year event looks like.
Yeah.
And then you're going to say, okay, a 100-year event looked like this. This is what we saw change, in this spring.
See, and I felt June of last year was 100-year. Everyone was talking that was, with all the flooding with Yellowstone and everything that
I
happened.
remember that.
Yeah,
I
We're
remember
about
that.
to have a 100-year event on the Teton.
I thought the Yellowstone was a 1,000-year event.
And you're on the Henry's Fork, but right? Yeah, right. Yeah,
It's on the Teton River.
It's on the Teton. Okay.
It's on the Teton. It feeds. It's South Fork of the Teton.
Okay. So anyway, we're gonna have a 100-year event on the Teton this year, and you're gonna see how much that property moves in for a 100-year event, and then you take that and you say, now I've got some data. Now you can use that data to say, is it worth it, to put some kind of change in here so that it stays somewhat in where it's at? Or do we just let its natural erosion happen and we're losing here and maybe gaining there? Or maybe for every 1 foot you lose here, maybe you gain 2 feet down there. You know what I mean? Like, so you're building that process as you go, and you're trying to make small 1% adjustments along the way.
So
Hang on, but what you just said now was wait for the problem, then take analysis, then change the process.
We know the problem is coming, though. We
The
know
thing-
what's coming.
the thing that I
So-
heard that was most important is gather data.
You're gathering
So-
data on that, though.
Don't just go with the flow. Record the process all the way through, so that way you can actually see when there's a problem. Because if you're not paying attention to how much erosion is happening, and then all of a sudden half your parking lot's gone,
But see,
you're like, how did I get here?
you're gonna see the problem this year, and then now you can forecast what you're happening in the next 10 years, and you can make a plan to be ahead of what's coming.
That's so fascinating.
Data or data?
Data.
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 It is data.
Data is what you call your
call it.
father.
Data. No, oh man, that's really interesting. So you do wait till there's a problem. You wait till a problem. You see where the problem is.
We know the
and then you
problem's
attack that
coming, though,
problem.
so it's like,
Yeah.
It's a preemptive strike of sorts.
Well, should I go out there and right now go start dumping stuff in so that it has, put up erosion netting on the river like this, in the next 2 weeks?
kind of curb the problem a little bit.
Maybe. I mean,
Or
I'm
cut down
wondering.
a couple trees and dump them in, like you said that a couple times ago. If you just cut down a couple big trees and put them on that bank, and that
Yeah,
would
just
cut down
put more debris so that it's hitting the debris and slowing down before it actually hits the dirt.
the dirt. That
But
would-
it's not coming clear across your
They were. I
field,
mean,
so-
my instruction that they said is go underneath, dig the dirt underneath, and lay the grass down. So you leave that topsoil,
This
but make it
slows
so
it a
that
little
there's the slope.
Mm.
But
I think there's nothing wrong with trying some stuff. You don't want to just leave it probably wide open. You know what I mean? But you got to.
so maybe even if I just did some snow fencing, maybe snow fencing on, you lay that across the dirt, like they do chain link on.
I'm really interested.
You're kind of testing the waters a little bit, though, right?
what you did
Like
there.
with your process, right?
So maybe if you know there's going to be a problem, set up a little bit of a test before it hits to see how much of a difference it makes. But yeah, but then you don't know exactly what difference. Because I wouldn't be surprised if that river's 3 to 5 feet higher than it usually is, at least.
Oh, last year we were at 8 to 10.
You were 8 to 10 feet
It was
higher.
8 to 10.
Was it over the parking
It
lot?
flooded
or
my
not?
whole parking lot.
It flooded your
My
parking lot.
my parking lot.
What are you doing in the parking lot?
My farting lot.
That's the F one that you were saying.
Yep, that's it. But what is happening?
Oh, it stopped!
I keep bumping this thing.
Chaos.
He
I
knocked
bumped it
over the
earlier.
dragon skull, and now the
Oh my
dice
gosh.
isn't spinning.
And-
that has been spinning for 2.5 months, and you just
You
ended
just
the
ruined it.
process.
Oh, well, it's because you added the cheese balls. I don't know why those.
The
are there,
cheese
but-
ball. It's tax write-off now.
Oh gosh. So anyway, but I still look at it and I say, to go out there and do some preemptive stuff and spend how much money do I spend? Because I still don't know what my
You
investment is
could
going
really
to look like.
quickly eat up all your profits for the next
What?
5 years.
And I'm going to
Absolutely.
argue that if it is a 100-year event that we're going to see, then is it even going to matter the stuff that you throw at it? Like,
Probably not.
right? I don't think it will. I think if you're going to see that much water come through, I'm going to argue that fencing is like
Not gonna make a difference because you're just gonna come back and your whole
Parking a
peninsula's gonna
Buick
be
in the
gone.
way though.
now we're talking.
If I just drop a couple of Buicks just right in the river
Or
and
a
it just
bus.
if only I owned a big bus and just put it. Could you imagine though if it was so strong it just picked that bus up and just
Where the bus was gone.
Just rolled it down. Anyway,
Oh man, it's
people are freaking out like the children, think of the children.
I do think the most important part of it, though, is just collecting the data, right? And then you can see where you need to move forward. And then you can start to make projections.
Because it could be that all the erosion that happened last June is as far as that erosion within limits is
Yeah.
going to happen because last June there was a lot of water. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know.
But that means that we've had 200-year events in the course of a year, though. So then, does it
Global
really affect-
warming, Brian.
Yeah.
No, it's climate change now.
Global climate changing.
They've moved the goalpost.
Changing room.
So, what the points that I've heard is collect data.
oh, look at you taking my job. That's great.
I'm trying to
Wrap
move
it
it
up. I know.
around.
I gotcha.
Collect data. You need to be willing to implement change. So when you find a problem, instead of just dealing with it, like find someone who knows what they're talking about and implement the changes that you need in order to be successful, and then either find someone who is interested or be interested yourself in making those changes, because that was a big one. If you want to have, if you want to be a grinder, is what the one that you said.
Yep.
You
Grinders,
need to
minders, and finders.
you need to find a finder if you want to be a grinder for your business. And so I think were there any other big key points that you guys?
I think it's hard to sum them all up in there.
Yeah.
I think
I feel
those
like
are
I
the-
won on a couple things, but I can't remember what I won, so it doesn't even matter.
And
But the Chaos River thing.
Yeah, I won.
That was it.
I think we said that you won in the short term,
That's all that matters.
but
Right?
okay,
A win's
okay.
a win's a win.
Yeah.
Snitches get
plausible.
stitches.
In the in no, you know what? I won't go there. But no, I think that we should do this. I think we should do another one again with
Processes
Michael
Part
Beck and
3.
talk about how to implement processes.
How to implement
Well,
them.
and develop processes.
develop
too.
processes,
And
develop,
implement
implement, and I would even say brainstorm. Like I would love to hear brainstorming on things like new product. Maybe that's a different episode, but I feel like that there are certain processes that I take when it's ready to develop something new. And what does that look like? Instead of just saying this is my good idea, let me go ahead and run with it. Instead, you you have a process in. Is this going to be viable as a product on the market? You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, man, that's weird. That's not weird. It's
that's just a word that just came out of your mouth.
For
That's
so I use
Education.
Interesting and weird are the ones that I use because it's a process that I've never really taken the time to think about. But so if you want to find out more about processes and implementing them and developing them and all that jazz, follow us, like us, subscribe, all that jazz, whatever your platform asks for,
so much jazz.
all the
Lots of
jazz.
jazz hands.
Leave a comment. It helps us become more discoverable. The podcast is available on Wednesdays. Audio versions available essentially everywhere podcasts are available. Videos available on Rumble and YouTube. And thank you so much for watching.
Oh yeah.
Thanks for having me over.
The nachos.
Tacos.
No!
I still can't believe I didn't record. I knew it was going to happen.
Huh. Should have started a process.
You can take it over.
Okay.
You can sit here next week.
Excellent.